Hey guys, and welcome back to the final Movie Club Emporium review of 2024. It is also the final week in our theme month for December, Fa-La-Lycanthropy. And let me tell you guys, this is a movie. That's pretty much it. You're right. No. This movie that we're going to talk about today, which is 2001's Wendigo, um, answered a lot of questions for me. A lot of questions that came up when I thought of the idea of doing Werewolf and Wendigo movies set in the snow for Christmas. Because I'm not a big Christmas movie guy. You know, we've covered some. But I thought this would be a little fun little break. And when I was like, okay, so we talked about Werewolves Within, Wolf of Snow Hollow, um, and so I was like, I want to do a couple of Wendigo movies because earlier this year I did a review for the movie Antlers, which if you haven't, um, I don't remember how spoilery I get, but make sure you watch my video first and then go watch that movie because it's a really good movie. And so I was like, why don't we get, and now, of course, now werewolves are getting kind of resurgence. There was that whole, like, weird action movie that came out, like, this month. It was, like, The Purge meets werewolves. I haven't got to see it yet. I was like, okay, The Wolf Man is coming next year. There was that Jon Snow werewolf, maybe, movie. And so I was like, werewolves are. Why can we not get um a good Wendigo movie? There's Antlers was great. I know most people hated that remake of Pet Cemetery. I didn't hate it. I did like that it kind of gave more life to the fact that there's a Wendigo in that novel, and the first movie completely eludes or excludes. Um, Growing up in rural Oklahoma, we had our own version of the Wendigo. Um, it it's just a really cool, creepy folklore thing that nobody really tapped into. And now, having seen 3 Wendigo movies, I understand because of those 3 movies, one was really good, and the other 2 are kind of terrible. Um, Full disclosure, before doing this movie, Wendigo, um, I had started watching Larry Fessenden's follow-up movie, which was in 2006 called The Last Winter, um, which also involves snow and possibly the Wendigo, but I thought it was this movie. Having now seen this movie, probably should have just stuck that one out because at least it had Ron Perlman in it, and looked like a total like The Thing ripoff. This movie, and look, I like Larry Fessenden. Whenever I'm watching some horror movie on Shudder, and he pops up, I get super excited. He's like, for me, he's like the male Barbara Crampton. Ironically enough, they're both in a fantastic movie called Jacob's Wife. But I love when he pops up in movies, and no matter the size of the role, whether it's something as small as like Session 9 or something like that is really underappreciated. That's the only way you can find it anymore. Him and one of the Hobbits did a movie called I Sell the Dead, where they play essentially a Burke and Hare a very famous grave robbers duo. It's a fun movie. This movie is the most 2001 movie that ever 2001. And I make that joke because this movie just screams early 2000s independent, like artisan home video. Uh, from the look of this film, it looks exactly, it's the same type of like, we shot this on Super 16 and blew it up to 32 millimeter, or 30, whatever the number is, millimeter. It has that same weird, gross, grainy look as movies like Stir of Echoes, The Blair Witch 2, a movie that Nick and I talked about earlier this year, which reminded me of this a lot. The Jeff Daniels movie Chasing Sleep, where it's just like this ugly, grainy movie. And much like Chasing Sleep, this film, aside from some what are we doing visuals in the last 10 minutes of the movie, is insanely dull. Um, because I'm going to, unlike the Ghost or the Wolf of Snow Hollow, where I wanted you to watch it, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what happened in this movie. It's so this young New York couple, I guess they're from the city. That's all you get. Um, it's Patricia Clarkson and Jake Weber. Him and his sideburns and giant sweater are they're going to stay the weekend at this cabin, and their son's with them. And I don't know the actor's name. He played Dewey in Malcolm in the Middle, and he is a 2000s NPC character in this movie. It's just a boy with spiked hair, wearing cargo shorts and a giant puffy like Guess jacket. Like he, like he might he's probably wearing airwalks for all I know. I can't see his feet, but I bet that's what he's wearing. They're going to stay at this cabin in the snowy woods, and they hit a deer. And so then they run into some hillbillies, like you do. And for whatever reason, like this one particular hillbilly is like really sticking in Jake Weber's craw. Um, it has nothing to do with the fact that he's a hillbilly peeper because he peeps into their window for what is the most out of nowhere sex scene uh, I've seen in a movie. Not only is it out of nowhere, but it's like weirdly like intense, and you're like, not for this, not for this. Um, the movie does what I think what makes this movie at all memorable is its editing, which is also done by Fessenden, because it's like, and that's really where all the credit lies is in his editing, because it watching it like it's not on the same level, but just his some of these like weird cuts and some way he'll shoot something with like this weird POV. Um, feels like we're trying to capture that like Sam Raimi first Evil Dead. Uh, I have a style unlike anybody, and he kind of does. Again, not really on that same level, but the editing in this movie is kind of what keeps you afloat, because otherwise it's super boring. The movie does, however, open up with just credits over an action figure fight between the Wolfman and like the blue Zord from Voltron, which is kind of awesome. And then the movie just turns into this weird drama about Jake Weber and Patricia Clarkson, or like she's a psychiatrist and he's a photographer with like, and they're in a great marriage, but he's got anger issues and is distant sometimes, and so you feel like they're trying to do something with The Shining because their son's with them and they're alone in this cabin. But then we're dealing with this hillbilly who's peeping on him for that scene, and like really just giving him trouble. And not so much as like they were all kind of rude to each other, and then like the Jake Weber won't let it go. And then they go to the town, and Dewey and his mom go into this like little store, and this weird native man is like, "Hey boy, look at this carving of a Wendigo. The Wendigo is very scary, and it can be the wind or a tree. But whatever it is, it's bad. Bye." And you're like, well, okay, yeah, that's okay. But then you're led to believe, like, did he really see that guy? Or is that guy a ghost? Or was he the Wendigo? Because that's not ever really explained. Everybody says they don't see him. Only the boy does. And then things kind of happen. Again, very slowly. The you have the thing with the hillbilly, and then like one confrontation with the guy, like that's it, and then you see him being a peeper, and then Jake Weber takes Dewey out to. And then, like, at night, he sees, like, this weird kid come out of a closet and shoot at him. He sees the hillbilly come and shoot at him. He sees, like, a big skeleton, a big deer, like, dancing, stop-motion style. Like, in these nightmares and stuff. Because he keeps, like, fainting and hitting his head. So you're like, he's clearly concussed. So Dad takes him out to sled, and they start sliding, and then Dad falls off the sled, and then boy slides down all the way down the hill, climbs back up the hill to find his dad laying on the ground bleeding. And so he freaks out, takes off running, and hits his head again. He's like, he might as well be playing quarterback for the Dolphins. And come to find out that Dad was shot. You assume on accident because down the hill from this house, the hillbillies have like a shooting range. And so while it's never said that he was shot on purpose, they thought maybe, you just assume maybe he was shot by accident. Because these guys are out hunting deer and they're just out, sledding in like dark colored coats. They take the dad to the hospital. He goes into surgery. The boy faints again. You find out that the last name of the main antagonist hillbilly is the same last name as what they call the old Stutsky house or Stosky house. Because it was bought out from under his family. It was his childhood home. It was bought from under him and sold through a couple people. Now it's like you go rent your cabin or whatever. So the sheriff goes to talk to him. Meanwhile, Jake Weber just dies from his bullet wound. Just dies. He's dead. Meanwhile, the sheriff goes to talk to. I think his name's like Otis. Like it's really, right, yeah. And he's like, "Hey, can you come down? We gotta talk about some stuff." was there an accident? And he's like, yeah, let me grab my coat. And then this guy murders the sheriff with a hammer and leaves, but then he's being chased by a giant skeleton Wendigo. And I say that like it's supposed to be scary, but it's not. It's because he's driving, and there's been nothing to lead you to believe that the Wendigo is an actual thing. Um, just this kid has this weird like ivory carving of a trinket of a Wendigo, but this thing kind of looks like um. You remember in the original like Get Out trailer where there's that weird scene where Daniel Kaluuya like has like a match or a flashlight or something, and that weird skeletal deer runs in his face. It's like, Mah! And you're like, what was that? And then it's not in the movie at all, and so you're like, what was that for? It's from this movie because the guy is running from this deer that he sees, drives off the road, is in this horrific car accident. And then we see the kid standing there knowing that his dad's dead because the nurse just brings the mom, like, his dad's, like, snow boots with blood on them. She's like, I'm sorry, they did all they could. Here's these boots. And so the mom starts crying. And so the nurse just sets the boots in the middle of this hallway and walks off to leave this boy to like look at his dad's bloody boot. And then to see that guy come in, he's been in a car wreck, but he looks scared. And him and the boy make eye contact. And then the movie ends. So, yeah. What? And it's an hour and a half, and it feels a lot longer than that. And then it ends with what sounds like a Ween song. Not Ween. What was the name of that band? Wilco, like a Wilco song, but it's not. And then there's a quick like a mid-credit scene where you see the tow truck towing in his pickup. And if I was supposed to think that it was beaten up by a skeleton deer, I don't know, because he drove it into a tree. And then at one time he sees that native man again. I think in the hospital. But again, he's like on his third concussion. He's like Billy Bob in Varsity Blues. So who knows what's happening? I didn't know what was happening. So yeah, I kind of wish I had just watched The Last Winter. But I was like, okay. It's called Wendigo. That was my first mistake. You don't call your movie something that's in it. Because then it just means it's a metaphor and it's not going to be what you want. So I don't recommend Wendigo. The jury's still out on The Last Winter, so we'll see. But not to end the year on a bummer. But I can tell you this for certainty, regardless of how Fa-La-Lycanthropy, how it went. I'm glad those of you who were here for it. It was a lot of fun, a little different for the holiday season to do. Not necessarily holiday movies for the holiday. But we are closing the books on 2024, and we are moving right along. The party never stops. Going right into 2025. Now, at the end of January, Nick and I over at our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Movie-Club Emporium, Nick and I will be doing our January live where we will be breaking down our top and bottom best and worst of 2024. You are not going to want to miss that because we like to wait till everybody has to get theirs out right before the end of the year for the first of next year. No. We let all those go, and then at the very end of January, we give you the facts. No opinions, just facts. But it's going to be a lot of fun breaking down some really great and not so great movies. But we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But we also use the month of January for catch up for our French trip. No, that's a stupid joke. I regretted it immediately. But kind of catching up on movies before we do that list. And so, January, we're going from one theme month right to another. The last few months of the year are theme months, and we'll start off 2025 with a theme month. But I will say this. These theme months are like my children. I only have one that I really like. No. I will say this. This is true. November is my absolute favorite theme month to do. However, January is the most fun because it is 90s schlock January. And buddy, do I have some schlock for you. I'm going to give you a couple of hints what we got coming up here the first month of the year. 4 bizarre, wild, and weird 90s films for you. We've got a Freddy Krueger ripoff. I've got a movie made by an Australian madman. This is a sophomore feature. And involves probably one of the coolest looking dusters you're ever going to see in your life. We've got a movie that stars a crazy cult, as well as an adult film star and your favorite cowboy's dad. And lastly, one hell of a Christopher Walken film. So you are not going to miss all the wild stuff we're going to talk about as we look at some weird WTF movies from the 90s, all of January. And then February kicks off. We're going to be doing brand new, hopefully, as available, reviews each week. But it's going to be a lot of fun, so you are not going to want to miss that. So make sure you are subscribed. You got to subscribe. Let's get to this. I haven't brought it up all year long. Let's end this year right. We'll do the YouTube thing. You got to click the bell and join. Notify all so you know when we post. We post every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here. We go live once a month over at our Twitch. Usually it's the last Saturday of the month, give or take, depending on our schedules. Those are going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, you're either seeing this right after or right before our after Christmas office party. And so you know what's coming for the most part for this year's monthly live. So you're going to want to stick around for those. And to end this video and this review, in all sincerity, thank you for a wonderful 2024. When we are still very small, but the fact that there are as many of you here as there are is awesome, and I only hope to grow that number, so make sure you tell your friends about it. But we were doing this in front of nobody for years on the app of Faces, and so to finally break down, get some better equipment, and do these on YouTube, pretty cool. And the fact that we kind of have the audience that we do have, no matter how small it is here, is an actual audience as opposed to the nothing views we were getting on the other app. So that's because of you guys. So thank you all so very much. Hopefully we can make it even better. That's always my goal, to make these as fun as possible. and to have a good time talking about movies, because that's the most important thing. Is this is a place where you and I get to hang out and talk about movies. So here's a 2025 being even bigger, even better. And until then, have a safe and happy New Year from my family and from Nick and his family to you all. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And we'll see you in 2025. Bye.